Stay tuned to our social media channels for more information.
Hi, my name's Charlie Pettit. I'm the online editor for Tabletop Gaming magazine, and this is Catch the Snitch, the newest game from Night Games, set in the wizarding world of Harry Potter, where you'll be playing the best sport in the world, Quidditch. Just to let you know, this is a paid video from Night Games. So whilst we won't be reviewing it or awarding it any house points, we will be talking you through the things that you'll be able to find inside. Now with that, it is a prototype copy for the Kickstarter. So we've got some 3D printed models, which will be different to what you receive in the actual game. But it's all enough to give you an idea of what you can play, and we'll talk you through a couple of the rules as well to get you started. Catch the Snitch is a two-player game, so you'll need to select your team from the 4 houses that are provided. I, of course, have picked Slytherin. I don't know if you can tell from the background. Now, the game itself will take around 40 minutes to an hour to play, and is for ages 8 over. As with any good game of Quidditch, you'll need to pass your quaffle between the chasers as quickly as possible. Of course, you're heading towards the hoops to try and get past the keeper, and it's his responsibility to try and stop you, of course. Now, in the meantime, you're going to have to be avoiding bludgers, because the opposite team is going to be trying to hit those towards you, and equally, once they've got the quaffle, you'll be doing the same to them. Every successful move that you do gives you tempo points, and you'll need those for later, but we'll talk about those in a mo. So, what's in the box? Well, you can see there's actually quite a lot here. We've got our initial Quidditch pitch, and we're all set up for a game here. So we've got each of our detailed miniatures all waiting to play. Now you can see we've got Slytherin and Gryffindor set up, but we've also got Ravenclaw and Hufflepuff as well. So you can play your house exactly as you should. In my case, we'll go with Slytherin. Now, other components included are much of your cards, your tokens, and your dice. So we've got things like character cards to explain who it is that you're playing as, and what sort of abilities they have and how they're able to perform within the game itself. Then you've got things like your action cards, which dictate who's going to move first and things like that, and as well as tokens to help you out working out what's happening across the board. Finally, we've got these dice, which are the ones that will dictate whether you are successful in your actions or not. So how do we play this game? Well, we're going to start with our team. So initially you're going to agree how many galleons you're going to be spending on your team amongst you, and you're able to spend the same amount. Now, what that means is you've got characters that sometimes have better abilities, and you might want to mix those into your team. So usually these have 0 galleons, these are the best ones to start with, and then a couple with those upgraded options where you've got maybe spending 1 galleon, and you'll build your team from those. Of course, you stick within your houses, so you'll need to play as a Gryffindor if that's your team, but that lets you build up and work out who you're going to play with. Now, each of those, of course, you have set up as your team in terms of what positions those need to play as. So we've got our keeper, we've got 3 chasers, we've got 2 beaters, and our all-important seeker. Whichever those positions are, you can move around at the board, usually 1 section, sometimes 2, depending on what abilities you've got, and you'll be able to make your special moves depending on where you are. So chasers, of course, will be able to pass. Your beaters, of course, will be able to fling bludgers at the opposing teams to try and knock them off their game. The chasers, of course, have special moves that allow them to try and manoeuvre out the way of those bludgers. They'll be passing between themselves and then shooting for that all-important goal at the end. And then lastly, your seeker will be hanging around waiting for the opportunity to catch that elusive snitch if they manage to see it first. Now to start, coaches will roll a dice to see who kicks off and then reposition their team on the pitch. So it might be that you move people into the sort of more attacking formation, or you might want to go on the defence depending on where you think you're going to start. You'll also be moving the bludgers into the position that you think will be most beneficial to you, and then the game begins. To start, each player draws 5 cards, and these give you 2 things that you need to consider. Firstly, how your moves are going to play out. Are you going to be someone that needs 2 actions to start with? Because you'll play across 3 rounds. So to show you those cards at the top here, you'll see that you're able to complete this movement, your opponent will complete their movement, you'll come back on the second one, do as your card dictates, and so on and so forth. Sometimes those might be blank so that you get an extra bonus at the end, but it's up to you to think how the game is likely to play out within those 3 moves. When you lay down your first card, you'll lay it down blindly, so your opponent won't know what it is that you're choosing, the order of movement that you're going to take. In the same way, you won't know what theirs is, so you don't know whether they're going to be attacking particularly with more movement to begin with, or whether they're taking a more defensive approach. You'll find out that when the game begins. The other option you have is to complete intrepid moves. Now those are listed on the cards that you have, and they'll have different bonuses for you to be able to complete. You lay those down openly. which means the other player can see what it is that you're expecting to do within that round, and you resolve those first. You can lay down a few of those, but you need to be aware that once your hand runs out, that 5 cards you picked up initially, the other team member will get a free move. And that is something you need to consider tactically. Is that going to cause you problems? Should you keep those cards back for later on? So because I have the quaffle, that means I get to move first, and with that I can decide how I'm going to proceed. So it might be that I want to hit a bludger at the opposing team, it might be that I want to pass my quaffle between my chasers. Either way, that decision is going to be dictated by the dice as to whether I'm successful or not. And the opponent, of course, has an opportunity to resolve their actions in line with that. So I might hit a bludger at them, they might try and defend it in that case. That is all done through these dice. So when we roll the dice, we can see your quaffles, which represent successes, and your reactions, which are represented by the bludgers. But in this case, because I'm playing as Slytherin, my character card means that this player can re-roll any of their dice when performing a beat action. Perfect, let's get rid of some of those. So if we re-roll, I've got one more success and a greater likelihood of hitting the opponent. Each successful action that you then take gives you a tempo token. You're going to try and build those up, because once you get 3 or more, you can then swap them for a Snitch card. Those Snitch cards are marked on the board themselves. You can pick which one you think will be the best one for you or the most tactically available one, and you're going to be wanting those in the second phase of the game, so it's important to try and build those up. Now you can also gain those Snitch cards with successful shots at the gaining points, so getting past that keeper, you can then gain more Snitch cards. The more you have, the easier that track is, and the more likely you are to catch that elusive Snitch at the very end of the game and in the second phase. There are rules as well for playing disadvantages, as well as how to use spectators in the advanced rules. Things like stunned players and all sorts are all included within the rulebook itself. Throughout the game, you're going to be trying to gain Snitch cards. Those allow you in the second part and the second phase to try and move forward as quickly as possible and catch that elusive Snitch. Now, as you will pick these up, you'll hopefully gain quite a few, and within the last 4 cards of the game, the Snitch itself will appear. As soon as you see this Snitch appear, the race is on, and you'll be swapping from your first phase of your game to your second, using those seekers to try and catch the Snitch. Where that goes depends on lots of aspects: how many cards are left, how many cards are held by each player, the gap in it. However, you'll place it somewhere along the board, and then the race is on. Now, with that hand of cards, you're then going to be selecting what it is that you want to do. So it might be, in my case, that I can move forward 2 spaces, but equally, my rival then has to pick whether I move forward a further 2 spaces or they move back. It might also be that they've got something that copies the effects of the last card or disadvantages them in some way. If you're behind, you can move forward 3 spaces, for example. So you might want to hold those if you know that your other player is likely to try and dart forward. It's further tactic, but it's very, very quick, and you'll need to be thinking a couple of steps in advance to try and get to the Snitch first before your opponent does. Once you've caught the Snitch, it's the end of the game. You have won. Congratulations. All of the glory is yours. And that's Catch the Snitch by Night Games. The Kickstarter is running right now, so if it's something you're excited about, you can back it. You've got tons of extra options on there as well. But in the end, I hope you've enjoyed this video. Let us know in the comments if you've got any questions at all. And thank you ever so much for watching.
Stay tuned to our social media channels for more information.